Hello there, we are your hosts Vivek and Pavitra from the Agile Coach podcast. In this podcast, we bring fresh perspectives to you through our interviews with thought leaders in Agile coaching, facilitation, business analysis, and product management roles. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast. Hey, everybody. Today we have Marcelo Calbucci, product leader with 20 plus years of experience. Marcelo has spent 18 years building products as a startup founder, building multiple products, and he has experience working as an engineering manager at Microsoft. And recently, he was head of product director of product at Amazon. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your experience at Amazon and building startup products and going into product vision, product strategy, collaborating with business, and specifically about your book called the PRFAQ framework. So with that, Marcelo, welcome to the show, and I would love to introduce have you introduce to the audience.
Hi, Vivek. Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be great. Hopefully, we're going to deliver a lot of useful content. Yeah, I have over 25 years of experience in technology. I have a computer science degree, started at Microsoft in the late 90s, leading an engineering team. Then I spent 18 years doing startups. Then I joined the biggest startup of them all called Amazon. Left last year, and I decided to write a book of some of my lessons at Amazon so more people could benefit from it.
Amazing. Marcelo, let's just start there. Your work at Amazon. Amazon is known for their innovation and customer centricity and really leading. What was your experience as a product leader there?
Yeah, a lot of things that you hear from Amazon, you don't know if they're true or not. But when I joined, I realized a lot of them are actually true. Like the customer centricity is true. Amazon really cares about this is everyone from the CEO to the person making the deliveries of your packages. They really care about the customer and how we can do better for the customer. The other thing that was delightfully surprising or not surprising as I expected to happen is that Amazon really has a culture of writing and reading, right? So it's a culture of document and using that instead of PowerPoints to review information, convey information, detect problems and process. Like everything is through narrative writing.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard about that, Marcelo, and I'm really excited to do a deep dive into the framework. So, I would love you to pick your brain around when there is an idea, there's a product vision, right? And there's a process of creating a product strategy. Like, how does Amazon do that? How does a product leader do that?
Yeah, so that's not an isolated thing. This is a team sport at Amazon, right? So Amazon really uses the PRFAQ, which stands for press release and frequently asked questions. And some people might have heard the working backward process. PRFAQ is part of that process on how you paint a vision of the picture, a vision of the future, and write that in this 6-page document so that more people on the team can contribute with their feedback on what they believe is risky, possible, not possible, feasible, viable, all elements of an idea. And what you end up at in the end is a better idea than the one you started with, right? Is something that is more robust, more likely to succeed. You still might decide not to do it because there is other priorities or the timing is not right or something that you expected from technology doesn't exist yet. But it's captured in that document where lots of people contributed.
That's really interesting, Marcelo. So, in opposed to creating slide or even some mock-ups. So this is the culture of really thinking through and writing about, like doing a press release, even though product is not out there. And you're saying that you're writing FAQs for your customers about, what the product entails. Um, what's the reasoning? What was the advantage? What did you see when you're working there?
Yeah, so you have to think about how do ideas start, right? So usually there is an opportunity that someone wants to pursue. It could be in a meeting that someone identified something, or someone saw a competitor doing something, or a customer requesting something, and they go like, "Hey, this sounds interesting." So then someone goes and starts collecting the information, right? And the information they collect is really the like, what problem are we trying to solve? Who is the customer? How are they solving it today? How are we going to solve that? How are customers going to find it? What is the financial impact? What we need to build this? So those are the elements that go into the PRFAQ. Then what you have is a series of review sessions with all different teams. Like it might be with the product managers and TPMs, it might be with the design team, with the engineering, with legal, marketing, sales. All these teams, you are having this review and you're incorporating their feedback into the document, right? Until you get to a point where you say like, well, we can make a decision about this. And usually the decision involves the executives that might have seen the document before, so they also help shape the document. And once a decision is made, then is when the project starts. Like a lot of people start a project and then they decide to figure this stuff out, right? At Amazon, is always like, hey, let's figure things out first because it's cheaper and faster to do it this way than to try to build and put something out there that might not be a problem that really exists for the customer.
I love that. So, Marcelo, you're saying so obviously there's one side of the argument is, build fast, fail fast, that, but you're saying that, hey, like think about it, right? Let's just not just build something. Let's have a thought through business case and before we start building it, let's kind of bring the different stakeholders, the some team members, get the buy-in and truly come up with a press release for the product where you have run the ideas thoroughly through different team members, technical feasibility, all these things. And you're saying that this thought through plan has a much better chance of succeeding, and you've already like created the partnership and really created this, so a better chance for building a better product.
Yeah, I don't like to call it a plan. Because a plan is something that you think like there is a feature list, there is a roadmap, there is a user stories or like activities that you're going to do in certain dates and dependency and all this stuff. That's a plan, right? A PRFAQ is purely vision and strategy. It's a
Mm.
very high level document. You don't talk about user experience, you don't talk about APIs, you don't talk about cloud providers, none of those details that go into a plan or a PRD or user stories, or you're going to put it into Jira. And that helps a lot because when you're discussing just at a high level, you really focus on the customer and the business, right? So you focus like, are we doing something that is really valuable for the customer? And we are doing something that is viable for the business. Like, is this going to be profitable for us? Is going to deliver more business? Is going to lead to more customers for another product that we have? So if you keep the conversation here for a while, and I'm just saying like a few weeks, right, that you're having these conversations, it helps align the team. So when the project starts, people understand why we are doing this, right? And you also set some boundaries on strategy. Because if you don't have the boundaries on strategy, each person on the team or each team within an organization might be going a slightly different direction. And that causes so much frustration and dysfunction on teams.
Yeah. Marcelo, let's just kind of talk about the product vision and product strategy, right? So as let's say there is a new product manager, going into an organization and they're in charge for like creating strategy and a vision. Um, how how do you think through like strategy and vision, and how do you create an effective one?
Yeah, so I think there's two different stories here. One is this product manager in charge of creating something new, or are they in charge of narrowing the direction so it's more precise on what the team is already doing, right? So I think the doing something new is an interesting story because what you want to do is really understand the customer and the problem and the opportunity that you're trying to pursue. So you need to spend a lot of time talking to customer, researching online, doing surveys to get the data that you need to build the confidence that, yes, this is an opportunity that's worth pursuing, right? If you are joining an organization that already has a product and it might not have a vision, that's the sad part, right? Many organizations have products out there and they have no vision and strategy. So the job is, again, understand what problem are we solving to the customer. Often the vision is there, but it hasn't been captured and clarified, right? So you need to understand the customer and what we're doing for the customer and what we are not doing for the customer. It's outside of the boundaries of our strategy. This is super important as well. Otherwise, teams become feature factories and they just build and build and build, and they don't know why the product's not moving forward. So you want to create your narrow space in the segment that you're going to serve and understand that really well, and capture that in some document. It can be a PRFAQ, or it can be other type of document that your organization uses.
Amazing. Thank you. So mainly you're saying for the 0 to 1 product, right? Even though Amazon has a lot of very successful products, AWS probably being the one that brings in like a lot of revenue, and they're putting all these other bets out. So you're saying that this is really good framework for 0 to 1 products, right? What was your experience, as a product leader? Let's say you're not in a 0 to 1 product, right? You're from a 1 to N. How does one think about, product vision, product strategy, OKRs, these concepts?
Yeah, I think when you're doing 0 to 1, you're really trying to prove that your solution addresses the need of the customer, right? When you're doing 1 to 2, we have to assume that you already proved that your solution solves the needs of the customer. So what you're doing is you're improving what you're doing, or expanding the type of customers that you're serving, or making your product more efficient. Maybe the process behind it, maybe the operations behind it, you're making more efficient. So you can write a PRFAQ for any stage of organization or of a project, right? And what's going to change is where your hypothesis lies. So when you're doing a 1 to 2, your hypothesis is more about, hey, we believe if we do this, we're going to be able to acquire more customers or serve our customers better or improve our NPS score, the Net Promoter Score, or our customer satisfaction index. So you focus on that aspect versus, is our solution going to solve the customer problem, which is what you would do on a 0 to 1.
Amazing. Amazing. And Marcelo, I would love to pick your brain around metrics and OKRs, right? So, what do you, as a product leader, if somebody is a product manager in your team, what do you like to see? Um, how does a product manager goes about setting those metrics, OKRs for the product and the team?
Yeah, I think a mistake that happens often with OKR is people make OKRs for activities instead of outcomes, right? So we're going to build this thing, we're going to launch this thing, but what you're really trying to measure is end outcomes, outcomes for your customers or outcomes for your business, right? And that means utilization outcomes, for example, like how many times have customer used our product to address their need. You have to be careful how you define it as well, because some metrics are very easy to manipulate, and you don't want that. You want like true metrics that have a direct line with the outcome for the business or for the customer. And the outcome for the business usually is revenue or profit or number of customers, or some intermediary metrics that has a direct correlation with that. Because just saying like, let's have a higher revenue, it's not enough as a metric. Sometimes you want to understand the elements that go into that, right? What are the input metrics that go into that outcome? And then you focus on those ones.
Amazing. So, so I wanna just talk a little bit more about the PR FAQ framework, right? So the first one is a PR. You write a PR. So what are the other components of this framework, and how does one go about creating this?
Yeah, so the PRFAQ framework has really three sections to the document, right? It has a press release, it has the customer FAQs, and the internal FAQs. However, the way you write it is the other way around. You start from the internal FAQs, then you write the customer FAQs, then you write the press release. So you're doing things a little bit backward. And you do it like that because in the internal FAQs is where you're going to have the bulk of the document that describes what problem are you trying to solve? Who is the customer? How are they solving today? What is the shortcomings that they have with the current solution? Is this problem growing or shrinking, over time? And then what is our solution? How are we going to solve for them? So you write with the internal FAQs first. Then you do the customer FAQs, and finally you write the press release. And of course, people are going to read from the press release first, and then customer FAQ, and then internal FAQ. But what the press release does is sets everyone's mind in the right state, like they have the context of what they are doing. So basically, it's a priming document for the rest of the document that you're going to read.
Yeah, awesome. So you're just I mean, PR is that's more of a visioning thing, right? Like, okay, the product's already created, it's on the paper and it's a success. So you have that's the first part of the document. And then the second part is just the nitty-gritty of like Q&A for the customers. And I want to go a little bit deeper into the internal FAQs, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what the pain points of the customers, what products we already have, why this is a solid business case. So for a new product manager, right, or somebody who wants to really embrace this framework, what are the activities? Who are the people? If you can kind of give an example and kind of visualize this for the audience, uh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to give you two different dimensions of how to think about this, right? So one is you have to think about three aspects of what you're doing. And this applies to any project. It doesn't matter if it's an internal project, a program, a product, a new initiative, or you're changing something. And the three parts are, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is the solution? And the last part is, how are our customers going to find it? Right? So you need to think about covering all those bases in your internal FAQs. The other dimension that you need to think about is about value, viability, feasibility, and usability. Right? So value speaks to like, our customers gonna appreciate what we're doing? Is it gonna address their need? Are they gonna tell their friends or their other customers, right? Feasibility talks to the ability of the team to be able to do this, right? You can dream an idea very big, but if it is not feasible, it doesn't matter, right? And viability is if the business should do it. Is this sustainable, right? Is this going to have a return on our investment? Is it worth doing for the business, basically? And the last one is the usability. Really is like, our customers going to be able to use this if we put it out there? Are they going to understand how to use it? That is very important as well, because you're working backward from their need. And even if you solve their problem, but you don't make it in a way they can use it, like that's a problem, right? So you need to have some of those conversations early on.
Mm. And for this, as a new product manager coming into the organization, I'm thinking you're just, understanding the context, understanding the product lines, understanding the business model, um, really looking at capabilities of, your engineering team, and uh, and what else? Like, what else could I do to really capture all these things that you just shared?
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky, you're going to join an organization that is either using the PRFAQ
Mm.
or is using some other framework or formats to capture all those elements. So as soon as you join that organization, you can read that to help understand where you are and where you're going, right? The next step would be to understand what part of that project is already in motion and what is not in motion, and understand where are the gaps between what you just read and what is the team is doing. often the job of a product manager is to help the team realign, right? And make sure that, wait a second, that's not what we talk about. That's not what we, decided. Let's make sure that we are realigning here. Because it could be that someone found a technical roadblock, or didn't even think or didn't know about something and decide to go in a slightly different direction. So making sure that the train's on the track, as a way of saying, is the job of the product manager.
Amazing. So for actually writing the PR piece, right? So then you start with your internal team. You capture all these things we just talked about. So how does one go about actually writing the PR?
Yeah, that seems to be the one piece that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable about. Like, how do I write a press release? I think people read things that are created by marketing teams, which are very sophisticated. They use the language beautifully, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. Right. But the reality is the press release on a PRFAQ is structured as well. It has 7 paragraphs, and each paragraph has a very specific content that you include on that. And you don't have to make it like a beautiful story. You just have to make it coherent, so someone reading it can understand what you're talking about. So it's more about like get started than anything else.
Amazing. Thank you. Another question that I had for you, Marcelo, is like at Amazon, right? Amazon builds so many products, and so many products fail, but then so many products, are amazing, and it solves the problem, and the growth that Amazon has. So when it comes to like decision making, right? Like what is the culture? What are the frameworks at Amazon?
Yeah, so at Amazon, every decision is based on a PRFAQ. That includes every new product, business, program, policy, service that Amazon is going to do, internal or external, like HR, IT, accounting, legal, also use PRFAQs for their internal needs. But it's also used if you're going to change something, and even if you're going to shut down a product or a program or a service. So Amazon always use the PRFAQ for all decisions.
Amazing. So Marcelo, for organizations, right? Like I mean, we highly recommend you read the book, you get the framework, and you kind of get the core, the essence of why to use it, right? But there might be some of the listeners, and they might be like, okay, I don't know if I can, truly write a press release, or 100% apply this framework, but a new product manager, if they want to just get the essence, uh, what are some things that you would advise them on, like the pieces from PR FAQ that they could take and just kind of give us a distilled version?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a great way to get started is go to the book website and download the example PRFAQs that I have there. Right? So you have a sense of like what this looks like, and your imagination start flowing like, how do I create it? The book really helps you create your PRFAQ and use it effectively. But if you just want to understand like what goes into a PRFAQ, you can read the examples PRFAQ. And I also include some templates and other resources on the website for folks to get started with the framework. I think that's a step 0, like for you to learn about. The next step is really when a new opportunity shows up, right? Someone say like, hey, maybe we should pursue this idea. When you hear that, what I call a spark of an idea, like immediately think about, should we try a PRFAQ here? You shouldn't be trying a PRFAQ for the first time in a really big project that impacts the entire organization. That's too much, right? But if there is a project that is contained, maybe it's a 3-month project, maybe 5 people are going to be involved, give it a try. And like the first time is probably not going to be great, but that's okay. That's how you learn. Do 2, 3, 4 times, and then you gonna get the hang out of it. And it becomes a great tool for planning as well, right? Before you do your OKR and your user stories and the activities for the year and the roadmap, PRFAQ helps align the team on that context.
Amazing. So we will, on the show notes, we will leave the link to the book, the framework, some of the examples. So I highly recommend you to check it out. But yeah, Marcelo, thank you so much for giving those resources and kind of really help build this understanding around this framework. I really appreciate you. The second part of the podcast that I have for you is Marcelo. You've been a product leader. You've been in the startup field. You've led engineering teams. You probably hired a lot of people in product and engineering. So these questions are some questions around like the mentoring conversation. Like what do you recommend a new product person or somebody wanting to go from a new BA to a good product leader, right? So with all your experiences working with so many startups, companies, building startups, uh, what would you what's your advice for product managers or aspiring product managers to get the hold on the strategic side of things?
Yeah, I really think there is one thing that every product manager needs to master, no matter what, and that is understanding the customer.
Mm,
More than that is having empathy for the customer, right? So you want to understand their problems and their needs and desires better than they understand. And that's going to give you a advantage when you start thinking about the strategy to address something, right? Let me give a very simple example of strategy here. Like a strategy might be for a new product might be mobile first or web first, right? And there is no right solution here. Like it really depends on the problem and the customer and the situation, right? If you're talking about an information worker who is sitting in front of the computer all day, and you're building a tool for them to automate some process, probably you're going to say like, well, the web is the place to start, right? But if you're building a product for parents on the go, you're going to be like, yeah, it's a mobile app to get started. Um, and that's a very, very, very basic example, right? Like what you need to do is like really understand the customer, and then each step of the way, as you're making these strategic decisions, you can better fit their needs because you have empathy for them. You understand what problem they're trying to solve, what jobs they are trying to get done.
awesome. So, Marcelo, so another question that I have is somebody joins as a product manager in your team, the first 90, 180 days. Like, what's your recommendation for them?
Yeah, I product managers that join my team are lucky because I always provide a very long document of what they need to do in the first 90 days. And a lot of what goes into that document is things that they need to read and people they need to meet, right? And not only I say like, here are 15 people for you to meet, I say like, meet with this person and ask them to explain this aspect. So I ask them to meet with maybe an engineering manager and ask them like, explain how this backend works, or ask them to meet the UX designer and ask them to talk about the last UX research that we've done. So a list of things for them to do. If their manager doesn't provide that, I would encourage them to create that in the first week, right? Sit down with their manager and ask them like, hey, who should I meet and what should I talk with them? And what documents should I read first to understand what we're doing and where we are going? So I think that's a starting point. That those two elements end up creating all the other things that the person is going to know what they need to do in the first 90, 100 days, 120 days.
Awesome. Marcelo, like, you're an engineering manager before you're a product manager, right? Like, just curious to hear, like, what was, your new role as a product manager looked like? If you can share a little bit of your early product experience,
Yeah.
and maybe some things that, some of your strengths or some of your weaknesses, something that you had to learn.
Yeah, a lot of weaknesses. My first product role was really on my first startup that I had to learn the hard way how to build product, and I did many mistakes. Um, Understanding the customer was one of those mistakes, and understanding how to simplify things as well. A lot of times our customers don't have time to learn or they don't want to learn. So you really have to put yourself in their shoes and figure out how you can build something that is so simple, but it delivers a lot of value for them. So the transition for me was hard. And when I started having advisors to my first startup is when I really started to realize the gaps that I had. And I went out there. This was 18 years ago. So the idea of product manager was not as prevalent as it is today. The information that you could find was not as great. And most of the useful stuff came from the UX research side of the world because there wasn't really like books or content for product managers back then.
Awesome. Last question, probably, Marcelo. So somebody here listening is, 21 years old, recent grad, don't have a lot of experience, and they're hearing like product is on the rise, product development is on the rise, AI is on the rise. There's just a lot happening, right? What what advice do you have for this 21 years old who is in the space of AI and product management and just, doesn't have the experience, but, has a lot of time to kind of learn and get curious?
Yeah, I would say spend your time learning about customer discovery. Learn how to talk with customers, learn how to ask the right questions, learn how to ask the follow-up questions.
Beautiful. Um, with that, Marcelo, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I'm really excited to, do a deep dive around the book and the framework. And with that, I think this is a wrap. Anything else last thing that you want to share?
No, I'm super excited to be here, and I hope people like buy and read the book and send me feedback. My email is on the website, so whatever you think it's good, bad, or ugly about the book, send it to me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, that's a wrap with this episode. Thank you for listening till the end. We hope these podcasts are providing value on your Agile journey. If you haven't visited our website, theagilecoach.com, we highly suggest you for other courses and supporting material on your journey. You can also get access to our self-paced courses or learn more about the live training that we provide to become a Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager. With that, we will see you on the next episode. Love and best wishes from the Agile Coach.